And now Sze Wing, our last presenter for the evening. And Sze Wing and I have known each other for a long time, and for as long as I have known Sze Wing, she's been so organized in the online space. It's awe-inspiring. So I'm very delighted to have you presenting tonight about what you do and how people can make a few simple steps towards really actualizing themselves online.
Thanks, Kay. Thanks, everyone, for inviting me here. All right. So I'm the last presenter. I don't know about you, but I need a stretch. And I want everyone to stretch with me for 2 seconds, because if I want to get any information to come across, you got to be like, move a little bit to just shake it up and just take a deep breath and reset with me. So take a deep breath and just stretch. So I don't know about you, but I'm not a sit still person. So this is a good time for me to just get a stretch, get a sip of water, and then we can go through the last presentation for the day. And I really hope you will take something home tonight, or the practitioners. So in everything I do, I think I will always say, let's just start with why. So why are you becoming a practitioner? Why you are here tonight? I always like to start with the why in mind. So now, Dalai Lama said, share your knowledge is the way to achieve immortality. So I never thought that deep, but but for me, I think many of you may relate that we have this inner calling to share our knowledge or our experience, expertise, and we want to share our service to help others. And probably that's one of the reasons why we're all here. I've been associated with SoulAdvisor. Now, the key thing here is, so today we really want to talk about how you're going to enhance your presence online and through SoulAdvisor or different things that you do to attract more clients. Because here's the thing, you may have amazing knowledge, experience, and expertise, but if nobody can find you, then you can't help them. So, and I know many people find marketing may be hard, or talking about sales things can be uncomfortable, but I really looked at it as, how am I going to help my people to get discovered, help them to increase their visibility? That's comfortable for them to do. Like, my work, my why, I tell you, is really about connecting our intuitive knowing and our strategic thinking, put them together and help people to build a more fulfilled and wholehearted life. So with that in mind, when I work with people who are not comfortable with certain marketing tactics or sales tactics, then let's dissect a little bit. Let's unpack a little bit to find ways that you can promote your business and that suits you. So combining the intuitive, your inner knowing, as well as strategy. So, Amy have flashed it and I love it. So let's talk about the what, like 3 main sort of channels or ways to promote yourself. I would say, like, what I have here, I said blog, I said podcast, I talk about YouTube. These are basically words or audio or video. And some people may find this very comfortable. Some people may find it not so much. But I want to bring you some good news as well, because sometimes when you looked at it, you don't have to necessarily do all 3 things to get good results. And sometimes you don't even know you already have the things you like, content and things that you already have, that you can use them as a way to promote yourself. So I would say, obviously, we're talking about online space, and many people talk about writing blogs before. And blog is a very important part of it, because if you have a website, then obviously when you put content there, then it will affect your SEO. So I think Shelley has a point, because if you are new to the business and you don't want to create a website, SoulAdvisor is great with your profile, but still content itself. Let's say if you have your website, you put in content, it will help your SEO, which is a search engine optimization, which is important for you to be found, right? But even if you're in SoulAdvisor, which there are many opportunities for you to put in content such as your sanctuary, so that also become one way for you to share your knowledge and expertise with people, and also let people to know you a little bit. Like, you know, Jen talked about the social media is a great way for knowing your presence, but it's in a similar fashion, whether you're doing it writing a blog or using SoulAdvisor, your sanctuary, as a way to share content. And the good thing is that many of us in this industry tend to write and read and have conversation that can easily turn into a blog. Like an interview with a fellow practitioner can turn into a blog, can turn into a podcast, can turn into a video. So sometimes it's not as hard as we think to put the same, like create great content and use it in many different ways to help us to get discovered, because you know there are many different ways to get discovered, and sometimes we just didn't know that we already have what we need in order to do that. So I do want to mention about podcasts a little bit, because this is the fastest growing avenue, I would say, not platform, avenue in the US and in Australia. So it was estimated 120 million podcast listener in 2021, and there will be 20 million more this year and probably next year. Like, it's increasing crazy. The same with actually audiobooks, the sales rate and the growth rate just off the roof. So the audio is a very popular way for people also to hear you. And some people say, oh, I'm not good at writing. But then I'm happy to talk to people, and that is in itself, it's already a solution, because you could record your interview, or can even record a conversation, or you just, you know, spilling what you know. So that's why I think podcasts can be really great way to think about promoting yourself. And if you wonder, what about in Australia, because I talk about 100 million podcast listeners in the US, but in Australia we have 5.6 million. As far as I know, and I think that's a statistic for 2021, but it's roughly 26% of the population, and they're weekly listeners. But apparently that's almost double, year on year. So definitely people listening to podcasts, but obviously this is another universe. We often also listen to the US podcast, but my point is being that it's good to be open-minded about, you know, what about going on someone's platform as a guest? If you don't feel like you have the bandwidth or experience, or you like testing the water, maybe you don't have to think about running your own podcast. You can get interviewed by people. Like, I have a podcast show. I have over 128 episodes now, but I have been doing it for a few years, and it takes time, right, to build. But the simple way is that you get on some people's podcast platform in which you can practice your speaking or online presence, but also it's a great way to promote yourself without doing all the heavy lifting. And so that's one thing to consider. And many people like myself also use the same content, as in I have an interview and it can be written as a blog post, and it just sits on my website, which help my SEO. And there's an audio file to it, so it can be listed as a podcast. And it was recorded through Zoom. So I also have a video. So I have all three in one sitting. So if I interview Deb tomorrow, I could have a blog post, podcast, and YouTube video all done in the same time. So obviously that technical stuff associated with the actual doing. But my point is to say, when you have good content to share, it can easily just be spread and get discovered far easier than people may think, in terms of when you have good content. So my next slide talked about that concept a little bit more, which is, you know, once you have curated or created or map out the content you want to use, it can easily go into 3 different formats, and that's a good thing. And I also want to say content marketing, this is what we're talking about, the long form marketing that share your expertise, share your knowledge. It's a lot more personal, and it's a lot more useful for the long run, because this long form marketing takes a long time to produce, you can say, compared to you pay some money for an ad, but it actually brings more value. And there are clients coming to me years after I have done any interview. Like, so my interview may not get a client the next day, but 2 years later, someone will follow me and finally they will become a client. So it's a long form marketing, but they become much more loyal and you own that content. And so that's very important. It also showcases your expertise and credential in a different light. So I much prefer content marketing than ads and all that. And obviously that's a lot to unpack in terms of technically how to do it. But I just want you to take home as a concept that since you know a lot about a subject matter, you can easily map out a lot of content and topics more than you think you know. And they can also be repurposed or purposefully created in many marketing materials. So that's just one thing to bring in mind. And especially through SoulAdvisor, you've got your beautiful profile, but you have opportunity to write for the sanctuary and also presenting. There's many activities that jumping up. So there's definitely a lot more opportunities that you can use your content to promote yourself and get discovered. Now, the last kind of interesting bit that I really want to share is about the how. So now we know, yeah, great, I have some content, I have some interview coming up. So how am I going to really do a good job in presenting it? So I have a few tips that I want to share with you that I hope it's helpful for you, considering, let's say tomorrow, if you have an interview or are going to record a YouTube video, that could be something you can bring in mind. So you see from the picture, you want to stand out, right? Because yes, it's a very crowded place online. But these are the few tips that I have that I hope that you will find useful. So the first one, it says it's not about you. So a lot of times when we talk to customers or client and prospect, we tend to share, I mean, nothing wrong with it. As in, we talk about our experience, our background, what we do. So it's important to show them who we are. And it's a tendency because we're not used to necessarily having the sales conversation in that structure. We tend to talk about what we do and how our past was. But often what the customers really in their head really tune in, tap in, it's about how you can help them. So you know, the pain points and things that the problems they have. So sometimes we tend to get into the rhythm of talking about our product and our services more than really about the problems they may have, and therefore answering with that solutions in mind. So I think that's something to consider when we write, whether it's a blog post or doing a podcast. It's really about focusing on our clients and our prospects. And the second point I had was really touched on by other presenter, which is really about the stories, because sometimes people tend to remember the story you tell more than, you know, a lot of the things, as I said, the resume or other things that you come up with, or even concepts that it's like groundbreaking. A lot of times that people remember the stories better than anything else. So using your story strategically, that really outline how, you know, a person's have an impact for a transformational journey can be very useful. It kind of sells itself. So I think the third one I want to talk about today, it's about a clear call to action message. A lot of times that we tend to overgive because, you know, many of us are healers and practitioners, that we want to give people things. So we may tell them, you can check this out. I got the freebie here. You got the resources there. You can get a call here, you know, but sometimes here's the thing, when people are confused, they don't know what's the next best action for them. So confused mind won't buy. So if your message is about, give me a call, we can talk through it, that's really straightforward. Or download this checklist, then you will find it very helpful. So something very straightforward, very simple, but just one message, one call to action will be really helpful for any conversation or any blog or any podcast that you're going to do. So for me, it's just the same principle apply, whatever that is you are doing, whichever way you put your content out there, these 3 tips actually helps. So for me today, my officer call to action is that if you find this is something you want to explore, whether to become a guest or to host a podcast or purposely curate or map out the content. I'm here to help you, and also suggesting opportunities that you may have with SoulAdvisor to really drum up your visibility and discoverability. And different ways to up your SEO is important if you have your website. So I'm here to help. And my call to action is that, you can obviously contact me through SoulAdvisor, through my profile, but that's what I want to leave you with just a few tips that I hope you will find useful today.
Thank you, Sze Wing. It was beautiful and really, really concise. And I love that you label all health therapists, wellness therapists, as we want to give people things, because we do. And you've always been a giver. Like I'm always amazed by how much effort you put into assisting the people that are working with you to presenting something that's really professional and interesting. And yeah, it is a clear call to action. Definitely a clear call to action. So thank you so much for presenting tonight.